If you think that parents are always the closest and dearest people in life, you are deeply mistaken.
My name is Knox, and today I'll talk about the most horrifying cases where parents killed their children. And at the end of the video, you will learn about perhaps the most cruel and mercenary family possible.
Mother killed her daughter. Do you think that those who study to become teachers and caregivers truly love children? Initially, I believe they all enter the profession for that very reason, but for some reason, when I think back to my school years, I don't recall seeing such displays of affection
From my teachers. Why is that? I think stress is to blame. Where am I going with this? To the point that stress can
truly lead to terrible consequences. Here's an example. A 24-year-old woman named Gina, who lived in Germany, was studying to become a childcare provider. Her life was quite tough. By her age, she was already raising 2 children alone and was putting all her efforts into building a successful career. She lived in a state of constant stress, which significantly affected her. One day, Gina accidentally dropped her 6-month-old daughter on a tiled floor. The fall, as it turned out later, was very serious. What would ordinary parents do in such a situation? Of course, they would call an ambulance and take their child for a checkup. But because Gina was constantly under stress,
she couldn't calmly assess the situation. In a panic and fear for the future, Gina didn't call for help. She was worried that she wouldn't be able to cope
with raising an injured child, especially since she already had 2 other children. Although at that moment it wasn't clear how serious the fall was. Instead of seeking medical help, Gina put her daughter in the crib, hoping the child's condition would improve on its own. 2 hours after the fall, the girl stopped breathing. Only then did Gina call a doctor, but it was already too late. The girl had died. Consequences.
Agree, the girl acted completely illogically. It seems to me that the high load from studying and working, along with raising children alone,
was to blame. But this fact doesn't excuse the parents' negligence. And the fact that she wanted to become a childcare provider played a big role. This story gained huge public resonance. People simply couldn't believe that such a person could work with their children. Because of this, the police paid much more attention to the case. Gina was first arrested and then charged with murder. In her defense, she claimed excessive stress and a number of psychological problems influenced her decisions. Gina was afraid to seek help because of the fear of responsibility. It turned out in court that Gina suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. I'm not surprised by these circumstances. She was raising children alone, building a career, and studying hard. It seems she had good intentions. But I believe such people shouldn't work with children.
Imagine your child falls down the stairs in kindergarten, and such a
caregiver won't take them to a doctor out of fear of responsibility. The public shared this opinion. This fact played a key role in the charges brought against her. Unfortunately, how the trial ended remains unknown. Murder in Slutsk.
If you thought the previous case was horrific and brutal, brace yourself because what I'm about to tell you next might shock you. A tragic incident happened in the Belarusian city of Slutsk. What happened?
I'll tell you a bit later. First, let's reveal the identities of all key persons involved. In general, this was a large dysfunctional family. The parents often drank and had been repeatedly fined. Neighbors had called the police several times due to loud quarrels in the apartment, but no serious measures had been taken before this incident. This fact, I believe, played a key role in what happened. This story is very cruel and heavy, making it difficult for me to tell you about it. What actually happened?
As you might have guessed, due to the parents' alcoholism, conflicts often occurred in the family. One of these conflicts escalated into full-blown murder.
One evening, in an apartment building in Slutsk, a conflict flared up. The parents, having consumed a lot of alcohol, started arguing, and soon their anger turned on the children. During the conflict, they brutally beat their son. He received such severe injuries that he died as a result. And most importantly, this scene unfolded in front of the other children, adding another layer of cruelty to the incident. I personally have a question here. Could this incident have been avoided? Absolutely, yes, because neighbors had long complained about this family. Additionally, the parents had legal troubles. It's safe to say there was negligence by the authorities.
It seems to me that it would have been enough to deprive them of parental rights and send the children to an orphanage. Anyway, this option would have been much better than death and ruined psyches.
consequences and public response.
As you might guess, the consequences of this case were very significant.
First, the parents were immediately arrested and charged with the murder of a minor with extreme cruelty. The remaining children needed psychiatric help. Unfortunately, this case caused them severe trauma. It's frightening to imagine the nightmares they experienced. And what about the public? It once again highlighted the issue of alcoholism and domestic violence in families. The case received wide media coverage. Moreover, the authorities began working on legislation and taking full measures to prevent such cases. In particular, police now increased control over dysfunctional families. Story from Penza.
It seems all my stories today will be somewhat instructive to some extent.
If in the first case, the child's death could have been avoided if the girl wasn't in a state of constant stress, and in the second, if law enforcement paid more attention to dysfunctional families, then in the next story, a significant role was played by the fact that the woman had no support. However, I would like to add that she drove herself into this situation, and overall, I don't justify her actions at all. The story unfolded as follows. A woman named Svetlana lived in the Russian city of Penza. She had a quite prosperous
And complete family, as well as 2 children. But for some reason,
the woman decided to cheat on her husband. She secretly met with another man who also had a family. Unfortunately, it didn't stop at just walks and cafe visits. This woman got pregnant by the other man. Somehow, Svetlana's husband found out about her infidelity. Naturally, this led to a serious quarrel within the family, so serious that the father of 2 children decided to file for divorce. Everything would have been fine if the woman could stay with her lover and build a new family with him. But he refused her. The fact is, this man chose to stay with his wife and children. It seems their relationship was much stronger, although based on that man's actions, I wouldn't be so sure about that. As a result, Svetlana was left completely alone with 2 children. And don't forget that she was already pregnant.
by her lover. Moreover, she didn't have a good high-paying job, and there was no
Support from her family or ex-husband at all. She immediately realized that she couldn't support a 3rd child, so she decided to hide her pregnancy. Home birth and brutal murder.
I think you already understand where this story is heading. Yes, this woman killed her newborn baby. She never sought medical attention
And was not registered anywhere, which helped her stay unnoticed for some time. But where did she give birth to her child? You won't believe it, but right at home. Yes, without any assistance, in the most unsuitable conditions. Honestly, I couldn't find any information about whether her other children were home at that time. I really hope they weren't. What did she do with the baby? She killed it in the most brutal way. Her children had a ribbon they used to play with during their early childhood. And what do you think? She took that very toy, wrapped it around the baby's neck, and strangled it. Extremely brutal, right? But she didn't manage to cover her tracks. The police quickly learned about the incident and arrested the unfortunate mother. Svetlana was charged with premeditated murder. A medical examination revealed that she had serious psychological problems. The woman suffered from depression and post-traumatic stress disorder due to her divorce and the fact that her lover also rejected her. There were many public discussions about supporting women in difficult life situations, and here I can agree we should always help people in distress. But it's one thing to help those who suffer due to an accidental incident, and
another to help those suffering due to their own actions. Although, even so, this incident could have been avoided if this woman had
at least some support. I only pity the child who was killed by this unfortunate mother. What do you think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments. Murder in a foster family.
It may seem that I've already told you about many very cruel and terrible cases of child murder within families.
But the last case I want to tell you about stands out for its cruelty. What do you think if a couple takes children from an orphanage? They probably love them or want to help and support them in some way, right? Well, it's not as rosy as it seems. The Kranova family moved to a small village called Podobas. They were quite secluded, didn't interact much with their neighbors, but they couldn't be called dysfunctional. The woman, named Elena, had her own stall at the local market. Her husband, Evgeny, took on odd jobs. In general, it was a typical life in some village. But there was one interesting fact. The Kranovs took several orphan children into their family. Why? Probably not out of a special love for children. At least that's what I believe. The fact is, the government pays significant
Significant allowances if you take orphan children into
care. And quite possibly, Evgeny and Elena acted out of selfish motives since their family didn't have a good income. However, they didn't consider the fact that children are an additional source of expense. Moreover, the children they took in had their own needs, requiring a lot of time, effort, and money. And as you can understand, the Kranovs were not particularly capable of providing that. How this story ended.
Personally, I'm shocked by this whole situation because
Looking at it from the outside, it becomes immediately clear that this family didn't intend to help the children, raise them, or provide parental warmth. They just wanted to receive the allowances, and the headaches caused by the children led to inevitable consequences. The foster parents faced a number of difficulties and challenges in raising and caring for the children. And what do you think this led to? Of course, to quarrels, fights, and the most horrible outcome possible. Evgeny and Elena started abusing the foster children. They regularly beat them, starved them, and humiliated them. In general, they treated them in the most horrible ways. Eventually, one of the children's bodies couldn't take it. He died from the beatings and abuse. And what I find most strange is that even the social benefits and state assistance didn't prevent this tragedy. Although, you might think that even if you're only taking care of orphaned children for money, you could just bear with it, spend little on them, and be as economical as possible. But no, for some reason, the foster parents decided to torment the poor children. This case caused an uproar in society and raised questions about the foster care system. Many wondered how such dysfunctional families could get custody of children and why social services
didn't monitor their conditions. It seems to me that the problem was that Evgeny and Elena managed to convince everyone that
their family was well off. Maybe stricter checks were needed. After the circumstances of the case were revealed, the Kranova family was detained and criminal cases were initiated against them. Elena and Evgeny faced serious prison terms for murder. Moreover, their actions could be considered fraud since they took the children from the orphanage only for the money. Unfortunately, the story doesn't say how long they were imprisoned and what happened to the remaining children. If you know whether these unfortunate parents got what they deserved or not, write in the comments.
today I told you about the most horrifying and interesting cases where parents killed their children.
Which of these stories touched you the most? Personally, I would highlight the one that happened in Slutsk, where parents literally beat their own child to death in front of their other children. That story makes you think about the work of the authorities. It seems to me that they lack true professionals. And you know where else professionals are needed? In our team. Friends, you have the opportunity to join our team. If you have video editing skills, can voice videos in Russian, English, and other languages, or write interesting scripts, we'd be happy to work with. It's you. Contact us via the Telegram bot. The link is in the description, and thank you for your attention.